You know, when President Trump first established this review council, the goal was very simple. It was to provide recommendations on how to streamline and to right-size the federal government, especially in its role in disaster management. Now, I was in Texas this weekend and was there dealing in and working with the individuals who are experiencing this heartbreaking tragedy, and saw firsthand the devastated families, the reeling community, the leaders that are there on the ground responding. We certainly supported that immediately on search and recover efforts and partnered with the state and local governments to get Americans all of the resources that they need. Working together, state officials like NIMKID and the governor and his team, along with all the other agencies involved, have coordinated efforts that have rescued over 850 people. We now currently have an ongoing flooding situation going on in New Mexico as well, which we are in communication with the governor on and continuing to work there. And what President Trump has empowered us to do is to let these states and local emergency management officials run and make decisions that best respond to their communities, and we be a support that comes in and comes alongside them when they need us. Federal emergency management should be state and locally led rather than how it has operated for decades. It has been slow to respond at the federal level. It's even been slower to get the resources to Americans in crisis. And that is why this entire agency needs to be eliminated as it exists today and remade into a responsive agency. We owe it to all the American people to deliver the most efficient and the most effective disaster response. In fact, some of how we've responded to Texas is exactly how President Trump imagined that this agency would operate, immediately making decisions, getting them resources and dollars that they need so that they can conduct the response that they need to do on the ground. This job of remaking this agency is not nearly as simple as it should be because we're up against decades of gross mismanagement and negligence. The list of FEMA's failures is staggering. The scale of those failures is matched only by their longevity. FEMA has been disastrous at times, incompetent at times, and not just in the last few years, but for decades. There's times FEMA has performed very well and has responded and delivered the help that people needed. But we look back at instances like Hurricane Katrina, which happened 20 years ago, next month. There are still many open claims left over from that disaster that have gone unanswered. And meanwhile, in the last 2 years, or in the first 2 years, I guess, after Katrina, $2 billion had been paid out in fraudulent claims. Payments for Katrina recovery are still ongoing, with $400 million being spent in just 2021 alone. And then after the wildfires in Maui, residents voiced concerns that every FEMA employee that they spoke with had different answers. None of them had conversations that resulted in getting assistance that was helpful or any clarity in their situations. The situation in Lahaina was so bad that 1 in 6 survivors were forced to trade sexual favors, other favors for just basic supplies. At the same time, illegal aliens were staying in luxury hotels using FEMA dollars. The Roosevelt Hotel is the one you're probably the most familiar with in New York City. They got to stay there for free on the taxpayer dime through this FEMA agency. Most of those rooms cost over $300 a night. In 2024, when Hurricane Helene devastated the Southeast, FEMA's disaster relief fund was unable to provide the necessary relief because millions of dollars had been diverted to housing and transportation for illegal aliens. Now, FEMA was supposed to show up, and yet residents reported that they saw no FEMA personnel on the ground or applying for aid on their behalf. They instead had to rely on local volunteers. Right after Helene, Hurricane Milton also hit the Southeast. It was revealed that FEMA officials in Florida ordered relief workers to skip houses that had certain campaign signs, ones that had President Trump's name on them. And the workers responsible for that horrific act of discrimination have been fired. Politics has no place in disaster relief, and it won't in the future under our watch and under President Trump's watch. The American people deserve better, and they deserve better especially in times of disaster. The answer is going to be putting the federal government in its proper place, getting this bloated bureaucracy out of the way. And so that is why President Trump created this FEMA Review Council. The responsibility that you have is incredibly important. The future of disaster management has to be led by local communities and by states, with the federal government coming in a supporting role, empowering them, not hindering them and slowing them down with paperwork, bureaucracy, and lack of resources. State and local leaders know that their communities, they know what they need better than the government ever could. They know their exact needs and they know how best to prepare. People forget that the states are older than the Constitution and that they created the Constitution, that federalism matters and states' rights need to be respected. We need to focus more on helping, not hindering, and state and local authorities need to be empowered. We don't take charge of them. We give them the opportunity to lead the way. Now, a leader is someone who empowers others to do their job well and to be the best that they can be. The job of government is not to do everything for the people. It's to let people do things for themselves and empower them to make decisions and take personal responsibility for their lives, but to help them when a crisis happens. When I was a child, my dad always said to me, Kristi, we don't complain about things, we fix them. And I want all of you to have that attitude. We could sit here and complain about FEMA and the failures of the past, but we are charged with fixing it. For far too long, people complained about the incompetence of FEMA. President Trump is wanting all of us to sit down with clear heads, clear minds, and a good heart and be willing to fix this agency. Together, we're going to revolutionize disaster response for the 21st century by going back to our founders' first principles and why that works. When American lives are at stake, failure is not an option. So I want to thank you all for what you're doing here. I ask that God bless your work and that we come up with the right answers for the American people. Our hearts and our prayers are with the people of Texas, the people of New Mexico, others that are going through a crisis today, and know that we will walk alongside them through this, but also that while we are doing that we use every opportunity in front of us to do better, to be better, and to continue to create opportunities that the United States of America can continue to be the best country leading the way in the world. So with that, I'll yield back. Thank you.